real estate brokerage called Windermere, Matthew Gardner's top 10 predictions for 2023. So, what do you think, Darren? Should I read it off, or should we play his video and then just stop it and then say agree, disagree, make our comments? What do you think? Ooh, I can't hear you. Huh. All right. Well, some technical difficulties. I think what we'll do is, there you are. I can hear you now.
I say
Play the video?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's give it a go. And then I'll stop it. We can make some comments as we go. All right. Here we go.
Hi, everyone. I know you look forward to my annual forecasts. So here are the top 10 things that I'm predicting for the housing market in 2023. I'm always reminded
Maybe I'm being too ambitious. Okay, hold on.
of Mark Twain's great misquote that the reports of my death are greatly exaggerated. As you're all more than aware, mortgage rates have skyrocketed this year, which, when placed alongside the massive run-up in home prices that started when rates were falling at the start of the pandemic, have some believing that we are back in 2006 all over again. But that could not be further from the truth. Don't get me wrong, I certainly expect to see year-over-year price declines, the worst of which are likely to be seen next June, because last June was when prices hit an all-time peak. But I simply don't see any reason why there'll be a systemic contraction in home values. Sure, sale prices got ahead of themselves due to a perfect storm of massive pandemic-induced demand and historically low mortgage rates. But although we will see a modest downward correction in values, financing costs, well, they'll start to pull back later next year. And that will allow prices to resume their long-term average pace of growth. Again, that'll probably start sometime in the fall of 2023. After having been kept artificially low through 2020 and indeed 2021, mortgage rates started to skyrocket at the start of this year as the Federal Reserve announced their plans to address inflation, which back then had just breached 7%. Now, although the Fed doesn't control mortgage rates, they can certainly influence them. And they have, the 30-year rate rising from 3.2% in early January to above 7% today. While their efforts so far have yet to significantly reduce inflation, but they have increased the likelihood of a recession in 2023. And that's led to bond yields becoming increasingly frenetic. And that has mortgage rates very confused. Ultimately, I expect that the Fed will start to pull back from their aggressive policy stance sometime later next year. And this will allow rates to stabilize. And I expect them to start dropping by next winter. However, before you all get too excited, rates will remain above 6% until next fall, when hopefully we'll see them drop into the high fives. Yes, this is still higher than we've become used to, but a rate in the fives, well, that's still over 2 percentage points lower than the long-term average mortgage rate.
I just wanted to stop there. Any comments, Darren, as we go through those first two?
I thought we identified it as rates are confusing, which is why we become so focused on that.
Yeah.
They've been all over the place. So that's it.
All right, here we go.
There will not be a significant increase in the number of homes coming to market next year. Although inventory levels have certainly risen from the historic low that we saw at the start of 2022, they're still holding below the levels we saw at the same time last year. And listings are well below their long-term averages. I don't expect to see a return to normal levels of supply for one simple reason. And that is, why would owners sell and lose the historically low mortgage rate that they have? There are a lot of us who are sitting on a remarkably low mortgage rate. How many? Well, think about it this way. In 2020, 7.4 million new and existing homes sold. And those buyers locked in an average mortgage rate of around 3.1%. In 2021, 6.9 million homes sold. And those buyers benefited from an average rate below 3%. So that's what? 14.3 million owners have very favourable mortgage rates of 3 or modestly below. But there's more. 10% of homeowners refinanced in 2020. That's another roughly 8 million homes. 2021, another 25% of all owners refinanced. So a very rough estimate would suggest to me that somewhere between 25 to 30 million owners in America are sat on mortgage rates at 3 or marginally below. So tell me, what would lead them to sell? Of course, homes will be listed for sale for the normal reasons of job move, death and divorce. But the market won't see the normal turnover in housing that it has been used to. With supply levels expected to remain well below normal, I find it unlikely that we will enter a buyer's market in 2023. That said, we're certainly going to get back to a far more balanced one. That's something we haven't seen since 2015. A buyer's market is a function of supply and demand. And as I don't see supply levels rising significantly, and demand, although certainly lower than the market has become used to, still going to exist. Depending on who you talk to, a buyer's market is defined as more than 6 months of inventory. The last time we reached that level, all the way back in 2012, we were still recovering from the bursting of the housing bubble. But to get to above 6 months, well, we'd have to see the number of homes for sale rise above 2 million. Haven't seen that since 2015. And monthly sales, they'd have to drop to below 325,000. We haven't seen that in over a decade.
Anything there from the last two? Sticks out?
Gosh, a huge disappointment for buyers.
Yeah. I know the guy that I was talking to on Facebook, he was so do you think it'll go 20% down? I was like, I don't think so, man.
Yeah.
I wish, but no.
Again, this is a good article. The way he frames it, people are going to sit on their properties. I think if we move into a recession, those that have money at great rates will probably expand their properties if they need more space.
Mm-hmm.
So we might see more construction with the labor market's a little better.
Got it.
But a huge increase in inventory, no.
Yep.
So,
And that's the thing, he's speaking from a higher perspective nationally, but we see this in our own market week in, week out so far.
sure.
All right, here we go.
We all know that home sellers have had the upper hand for several years now. So much so that last year a broker suggested that the list price of a home for sale was no different than the reserve price at an auction, just a starting point. Well, those days are, thankfully, behind us. Although the market has pulled back, there are still buyers out there. However, the difference today and into 2023 is that higher financing costs and lower affordability have limited how much a buyer can actually pay for a home. And it's because of higher mortgage rates and lower affordability that I expect to see list prices to start pulling back as the market continues to moderate. Accurate pricing for the market will be more important than ever when listing a home for sale in 2023. The pandemic's impact on where many people could work was profound, as it allowed buyers to look further away from their workplaces and into markets that were more affordable. And last year, I was expecting that most businesses who had yet to define their policies in respect to working from home would have, by now, done so. But many still haven't. That said, I do expect next year will bring clarity to a lot of workers who have been waiting to hear how often they've got to appear in their offices. And this, well, it could act as a modest catalyst and allow these workers who may have been thinking about moving to actually do so. And of course, many may feel as if that ship has sailed, given the significantly higher mortgage rates that are in place today. But some who might be able to move far further than they originally thought they would be able to, well, they could start to search for a home. And the balance, well, some will wait for rates to start to turn around. Now, this could actually represent a buyer pool that starts looking for a home, but not until next winter. Permits for new home construction are down by over 17% year over year, as are new home starts. And I expect that we will see builders pull back even further next year, with new starts coming in at a level we haven't seen since well before the pandemic. Builders will start to see some easing in supply chain issues. Those are the things that hit them very hard over the past 2 years, but development costs will still be high, and trying to balance what it costs to build a home with what a consumer can actually pay, given higher mortgage rates, that's likely to lead builders to slow activity even further. Interestingly, this will actually support the resale market, as fewer new homes will increase the share existing homes will have on the overall for sale market. I expect to see markets where home price growth rose the fastest. Well, they're going to be more vulnerable to a disproportionate swing to the downside. Now, here I'm specifically thinking about the previously white-hot markets in the Mountain West part of the country. They saw an influx of remote workers at the onset of the pandemic who took full advantage of the very cheap housing, relatively speaking, in these areas. But although these are markets that will see prices fall by a greater percentage than the rest of the country, they too will start to see prices stabilize by the end of next year and then resume a more reasonable pace of price growth. In the majority of housing markets, the prices of residential homes will not increase in 2023, but any drop in prices, it will happen, but we're not quite sure to what degree. It won't be enough for those buyers that want to enter the market and buy their first homes. And with housing prices not expected to fall significantly and mortgage rates remaining higher than we've seen in over a decade, affordability is going to be a problem next year. Over the past 2 years, there have been a lot of renters looking at the market with a view toward buying, but timing, it wasn't quite right for them. What have they seen? Not only did prices spiral upwards, but so did mortgage rates. It's quite likely that many are now in a situation where the dream of home ownership has gone. That's not to say they will never be in a position to buy a home, just they will possibly have to wait a lot longer than they would like. The market over the past 2 years has risen to such an extent that it has priced out millions of potential homeowners. With a wave of demand coming in the form of younger millennials and Gen Zers starting to get older, the pace of housing production has to increase significantly. But there are many markets where there's simply not enough land to build on. And this is where I expect to see more cities, counties, and indeed states start to adjust their land use policies in order to free up more land on which housing can be built. We have already seen this happen. Oregon and California are two good examples, but I expect to see more markets seriously consider how they can help add to much needed housing supply. But it's not just land supply that can help. Elected officials will start to think about how they can help housing developers by, for example, utilizing tax increment financing tools. And this is where governments reimburse a private developer as incremental taxes are generated from their housing developments. There are a lot of tools at the government's disposal to help provide housing, and I hope that they really start to take this remarkably critical issue very seriously. Well, there you have it. That's my top 10 for 2023. I hope you enjoyed it. Got any questions, you know how to find me. But I hope you have a great year next year. Take care.
All right. Well, there you go. He said a lot of good things. I think a lot of things, right, that we kind of talk about through our live stream.